In the skies above Nepal, a story of disaster unfolded when Yeti Airlines Flight 691. The flight was scheduled to land in Pokhara, a city known for its stunning landscapes, but things would soon take a dark turn.
Flight 691 began its journey from Kathmandu's busy airport, a routine takeoff with no signs of trouble.
The pilots, experienced and focused, prepared for the short flight to Pokhara, a path they had flown many times.
The flight ascended without issue as the aircraft gained altitude, heading into the sky above the mountainous terrain.
The 25-minute flight was tracking perfectly, with no delays or changes in course.
Passengers were relaxed, unaware of the tragedy that was about to unfold just moments later.
As the plane began its descent, everything seemed routine. The pilots prepared for a smooth landing at Pokhara.
But as they approached the runway, the pilots sensed something was off. A growing unease filled the cockpit.
With the runway in sight, the pilots made their final adjustments, preparing for a standard landing.
Suddenly, warning lights flashed, and the plane began to veer off its intended path.
Pull engine 2 cut off.
It's not responding.
We have a fire warning in the cargo hold.
The plane tilted, struggling to stay level, as the pilots fought to regain control. At this point, the pilots knew the worst was about to happen. Seconds before landing, disaster struck. The plane hit the ground just short of the runway, the sound of impact echoing in the air.
Immediately, emergency responders rushed to the scene, battling the flames and searching for survivors.
The scene was one of devastation. The wreckage lay scattered, a tragic reminder of the disaster.
Witnesses who had been watching the plane's descent
shared their shock and
horror at what unfolded.
The people of Nepal mourned the loss of 72 lives, as the country stood in grief and solidarity.
A team of investigators quickly arrived at the scene, beginning the difficult task of determining what caused the crash.
At first, the cause remained unclear, and multiple theories began to emerge, from human error to technical malfunction.
Initial reports pointed to a possible mechanical failure, with some suggesting issues with the aircraft systems.
The weather conditions in the region may have also played a role, with thick fog and sudden gusts of wind complicating the descent.
The black box, a crucial piece of evidence, was recovered, offering a hope of unlocking the mystery behind the crash.
Rescue teams continued their search, hoping to find survivors among the wreckage.
Tragically, the crash claimed the lives of all 72 people on board, leaving families devastated and the country in shock. Yeti Airlines, a trusted name in Nepalese aviation, now faced intense scrutiny as the investigation continued.
The crash made international headlines, drawing attention to Nepal's aviation safety standards.
Nepal's government promised to improve aviation safety, pledging reforms in the wake of this disaster. Yeti Airlines expressed their deep condolences and committed to cooperating fully with the investigation.
For the families of those on board, the pain was unbearable as they anxiously awaited updates from the crash site.
Media outlets from around the world covered the tragedy, with constant updates flooding in.
Experts from around the world began weighing in, with many calling for greater accountability in Nepal's aviation industry.
Behind the tragedy were real people, families with hopes and dreams, embarking on a journey that would never be completed.
Nepal stood in shock, the nation united in grief. The crash of Flight 691 became a somber moment in history.
The black box was finally recovered, offering hope for answers to the mystery of what went wrong.
Speculations were rampant as media outlets tried to fill the gap left by the lack of clear information.
Yeti Airlines made the difficult decision to ground its fleet temporarily as safety inspections began.
The aviation industry worldwide took notice,
with calls for stricter regulations and oversight.
Despite the tragedy, the swift actions of the emergency response teams saved countless lives.
Initial findings focused on the possibility of a mechanical issue, but the investigation was far from over.
Nepal's unpredictable weather conditions raised questions about their impact on the crash, including fog and strong winds.
The possibility of human error was also considered, with experts reviewing pilot training and procedures.
Pokhara Airport, the destination of Flight 691, faced intense scrutiny after the crash, with safety protocols under review.
This tragedy marked a turning point for Nepalese aviation, with calls for comprehensive safety reforms.
Across Nepal, memorials were held to honor the victims of Flight 691, whose lives were tragically cut short.
Families of the passengers spoke out,
demanding justice and answers for the tragic loss of their loved ones.
Media outlets worldwide covered the disaster, sharing the emotional and tragic story of Flight 691.
Calls for stronger aviation regulations in Nepal were amplified, with many experts calling for international standards to be implemented.
Investigators found signs of technical issues, but a conclusive cause was still pending.
The cockpit's black box offered valuable insight into what happened in the critical moments before the crash.
Nepal's aviation history has been marked by both triumphs and tragedies, with Flight 691 being one of the most devastating.
Compared to international standards, Nepal's aviation infrastructure has long been considered underdeveloped.
Despite the devastating crash, emergency response teams showed remarkable efficiency in reaching the wreckage.
The black boxer's data provided critical information, revealing discrepancies in the plane's approach.
Weather experts analyzed the conditions on the day of the crash, with some believing the fog and winds may have been contributors.
In response to the crash, Nepalese authorities pledged to implement more stringent aviation safety regulations.
The international aviation community closely monitored the situation, with experts advocating for global safety measures.
Yeti Airlines faced intense scrutiny, with questions about their maintenance practices and pilot training standards.
Human factors, including pilot decision-making and stress, were also considered in the investigation.
The investigation continues, with no final conclusion yet about the exact cause of the crash.
The crash site stands as a stark reminder of how fragile life can be, even in the safest of conditions.
The local community in Pokhara was deeply affected, with the crash leaving a lasting scar.
What's next for Yeti Airlines? The company faces a long road ahead, with possible restructuring and reassessments.
Rebuilding trust after a tragedy like this will be a difficult journey for Yeti Airlines and the aviation industry as a whole.
The future of Nepalese aviation is uncertain, but reforms are already underway to improve safety.
A memorial was established in Pokhara to honor the victims, offering a place for reflection.
Legal actions were pursued by the families, demanding justice and accountability for the tragic loss. But
in the aftermath, the government rolled out new measures to enhance national aviation safety.
Yeti Airlines Flight 691's crash has left a legacy of loss, but also the promise of change.
Only time will tell if the lessons from Flight 691 will truly change aviation safety practices worldwide.
Flight 691 may have ended in tragedy, but it will never be forgotten.
For more updates on aviation stories and to stay informed, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon.